Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. Hey, all you minties. It is Tuesday, and I am the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. That means it is time to take a look at all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of all of these collected editions coming out this week. So we have 2 Captain America books, 1 Marvel Masterworks, and 1 Epic Collection, a reprint of an Epic Collection, and 2 ongoing series. And every week I do my pick of the week, the seal of approval. And let me tell you something before we even start looking at any of these. This week was hard because every one of these books has something really awesome about it that I enjoyed, but only one could be chosen. So if you want to know what it is, just watch the whole thing. But in case you're just curious about 1 or 2 books, well, I do put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around. Now, before you do that though, don't forget to smash that like button. It is a very small thing you can do for us here on the channel, but it means the world to us. All right, let's go ahead and start this week with, oh man, the Sanduff to the Bounty Hunters comic book right here. The Dark Droids Bounty Hunter story. Star Wars Bounty Hunters, Volume 7, Dark Droids. So this is it. This is the finale of Ethan Sachs' run on Star Wars Bounty Hunters. And it is one of my most favorite of the modern Star Wars comics. And unfortunately, I don't hear enough people talk about it. But I have really enjoyed the stories that have been coming out of this series. Now, before I open it up, this is the final volume, and this is also a Volume 7. So if you haven't read the previous volumes, minor spoilers going into this to set up what is happening through this final arc. Of course, it does tie it into the Dark Droids, and I've talked about those particular series already, like Star Wars and Darth Vader. But now it is involving the Bounty Hunters. So this collects issues 35 through 42. And you have Lan Medina drawing the first couple of issues, David Tinto drawing a couple of them, Jethro Morales and Paolo Villanelli. And then you have Arif Prianto doing the colors and Travis Lanham doing the lettering. And man, was this series so fun. So we are back with Baylor at Balance. He is now returned to his crew. He is not the same man he used to be. But that's what this is about. You have Tonga here, who's recruiting new members for her bounty hunters, because in the previous story arc, she had lost some. So this is the story of the remaining members, and I guess, as of right now, their last mission. So you have characters like Bosk and Zuckuss through here, and I did mention Tonga as well. But we are recruiting some new members, including characters like Deathstick and Dirge. And their first mission is to go after Boba Fett. And this is when it becomes really interesting why they are going after Boba Fett. Now, remember when I said that Baylor is changing? He's a little bit different. And that's because a lot of his memories were wiped clean while he was infiltrating the Empire. And now some of those memories are near and dear to him. So he remembers this young lady he keeps drawing named Yura and how she's important to him. So the first mission is to go and get Boba Fett. And Boba Fett, of course, you know, thinks that these people are coming to kill him because they're all bounty hunters. However, they don't want to kill him. They want to hire him and ask him to join them for this particular mission. And I don't want to say what the mission is, but it does involve the character of Valance. But before they go to that mission, they need to make one stop for Boba Fett. So you have now Tonga, you have Keltana, you have Katak, and like I mentioned, the other previous characters like Deathstick and Dirge and Zuckuss and Bosk. But that is your team right now. And where they end up going, of course, all this taking place before the events of the Return of the Jedi. And it seems like that's where a lot of the stories are heading to. A lot of the storylines are about to wrap up. But I don't think we're about to start the post Return of the Jedi stories quite yet. There are some characters here you're going to recognize, but they're not the same type of character or the same character that you think they are. There's a little bit of a weird flashback here with Jango Fett, but the story does tie into what's going on with Boba Fett's life. Now, this is part of the Dark Droids storyline, so of course something happens, because we do have a couple of droids that are with the bounty hunters, and it's how they deal with their droids that becomes really important to this, while they're still being marked for death by the Black Sun Syndicate. So not only do they have to deal with the Black Sun Syndicate, but they also have to deal with the scourge that's going around and taking over androids, or people that have android parts, like Balance. What's going to happen to that character? The send-off is really nice. It leaves it open for more stories, of course. I am sad to see the series end, and 42 issues would make a really nice omnibus edition, by the way. All the way in the back, we do have some variant covers. I love this. Is the classic, like, homage cover right there. And then you have other covers, some in thumbnail size and some in splash pages. The book has 192 pages and retails for $24.99. Daredevil by Saladin Ahmed, Volume 1, Hell Breaks Loose. Now, I'm not even going to look at the back right now before I put up the spoilers tag. So, this particular spoiler is not for the big things that are happening in this book, but it's for what happened previously, because this immediately takes place after Donny Cates' run. So if you don't want to be spoiled what happens at the end of Donny Cates' run, then I strongly suggest skipping to the next book, which will be the Star Wars New Republic, the new printing of that. But if you don't care about spoilers, if you've already read the Chip Zdarsky run and you're curious about this run and what the art looks like and what the story's about, well, by all means, let's go ahead and get to it. All right, we do have a new status quo for Matt Murdock, and it's a very interesting status quo. And I will say I love the fact that in modern Daredevil, since the days of like Quesada going into the Mac, and then David Mack going into Bob Gale, and Bob Gale into Bendis into Brubaker, Brubaker into the Andy Diego, and so on, it seems like the previous writer always leaves the new writer with Matt Murdock in a particularly new status quo. And this one is no different. And I'm not going to go into the big whys as to how it happened, but all you need to know is at the end of Chip Zdarsky's run, Matt Murdock now finds himself no longer Daredevil, but a priest, Father Matthew. And that's where this starts. He has been given kind of a new life. He is now running the St. Nicholas Youth Home, which is like a wayward home. He's there with Father Favi right here. And there's a couple kids. Some of them have some potty mouths. And it's interesting when you're reading this that you're going to see both Father Matthew, Father Favi curse a little bit. But, I mean, it happens. You know, they're people just like us. But I find it interesting that I don't think I've seen that side of priesthood in a Daredevil comic before, and I thought that was really unique about this. But yes, Matt Murdock is a priest. Does he remember being Daredevil? Absolutely not. He doesn't. He has no idea, but he has reflexes, and there's a little bit of flashbacks. Now, how he's keeping this wayward home up and going is a big mystery to everybody, including his other priest that he's working with, Father Fabi. It's like, how are we paying for this? Who is the secret sponsor that we have? Then we cut over to Elektra, who is still wearing the Daredevil outfit, and through her narrative, you find out exactly how you get to this particular status quo for Matt Murdock. She's approached by a demon, a sloth demon that takes over her body. Matt's having some nightmares and wakes up and finds Elektra there, doesn't recognize her, but then her voice starts sounding familiar, and he's like, who are you? What is this? Reflexes are starting to kick in, and he starts, again, seeing things, well, the way that he reads them, right, with his particular type of sonar that he uses. And I love the way that Aaron Cooter draws this demon taking over Elektra's body. It's almost ridiculous, but it's pretty cool. And Matt defeats him almost in a way, exorcises the demon out of him. I love the fact that he's still wearing his priest outfit while donning this bandage that he donned in The Man Without Fear, like almost his first superhero costume. So things are starting to come back to him. He knows that Elektra's in trouble. They had some kind of history, but he doesn't know exactly who she is. All he knows is that he needs to save her from this particular demon. So he performs an exorcism literally on this demon, and the demon shreds away, leaving Elektra there. And they have a little bit of a conversation. You can find out exactly what they say to each other, because again, that spoils a little bit of what happened in Chip Zdarsky's run. And then he decides that he's going to wear the Daredevil outfit. Now, you figured this is where it's going to end, the big cliffhanger. All right, we got Daredevil back. But no, the police come knocking on the door and they want to talk to Father Matthew. Somebody has been telling the media and social media that the home is not really a safe place for kids, that they're making terrorists there. So now it's up to Matt to find out who is doing this and why. And it's really all I want to say about this without going into spoilers, but I want to show you, in issue 3, we have Aaron Cooter drawing some of it, and then we have Fareed Karami drawing the other part of the Daredevil story in here. Now, Fareed Karami does draw the whole issue 5, and I just have to say, his art is amazing. I love Aaron Cooter. I think Aaron Cooter, I got excited when I heard he was going to be the artist on the book. But Karami's art really reminds me of like Neil Adams, like almost like a modernized Neil Adams with like Joe Quesada thrown in there. I don't know what it is about him, but I love the panel layouts. I love the details. And I love the composition. And it's just really good artwork. So I'm hoping that he stays on the book. And of course, Aaron Cooter stays on the book, and they both share it because they're both so different. But this book collects the first 5 issues of the new Daredevil series, the 2023 series. Let's go in the back here to look at our variant covers. Apparently, there was a foil variant here, and a lot of other variants in thumbnail size, including a Frank Miller one. And a Wolverine variant. Is that 3 Wolverines, 1 Moon? Is that what we're doing here? The book retails for $19.99, and it has 136 pages. And thus begins the Saladin Ahmed run on Daredevil. Star Wars Epic Collection, The New Republic. This is part of the Legends line, as you can see for the banner down there. And Star Wars The New Republic, Volume 1. This is the new printing, and this one retails for $44.99. These stories take place after episode 6. That is correct. Now, this is one that I used to have, but I never got around to reading it. I ended up getting rid of my Star Wars Epic collections of, oh my goodness, 6 years ago, maybe even longer than that, 7 years ago. And I'm glad that they released it in omnibus format. So the first time I ever read these stories were in the omnibus format. You have people in here like Timothy Zahn, Carlos Esquera, Carlos Meglia, Ron Randall, Ian Edgington, Steve Perry, John Wagner, Rich Hedden, Andy Majels, and Brett Matthews, Christian Reed, and Jason Hall, as well as Lucas Marangon and Clayton Henry, just to name a few of the creators. And this is your table of contents right here, where you're going to find each of these stories. And of course, the New Republic, introducing you to the concept of what has happened after episode 6. I know this is ridiculous, but just in case you have not seen Star Wars The Return of the Jedi, this might spoil some things for you. If you're that one person that hasn't seen it and you're watching this video, okay, just making sure, still playing it safe. So this comes from the Star Wars Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand. This is the webcomic right here. So what does this collect? Let's talk about that. So this collects Star Wars Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand, issue 0 through 6. The Shadows of the Empire Evolution 1 through 5, which is the follow-up to the Shadows of the Empire. And then Star Wars The Jabba Tape, Star Wars Boba Fett, Twin Engines of Destruction, material from Star Wars Tales 1, 3 through 5, 10, 14 through 15, 20 through 22. So in every issue, you're going to get who the plotter was, who the scripter was, unless, of course, the writers, this one and the same. And the artist, this is done by Carlos Esquera, who did Judge Dredd, who co-created Judge Dredd. And he's the main artist on this Mara Jade book. This particular printing retails for $44.99, and it has 488 pages. So I've mentioned Mara Jade. This is a character that was first introduced in the books. So now she is making her comic book appearance. These were originally published by Dark Horse Comics. And I'm sorry, I don't go back and watch my videos, so a lot of this might be repeating myself what I've said when I did the New Republic Omnibus Volume 1, because the stories are collected in there. But this particular era was so cool for Star Wars comics, because we were getting books, we weren't getting any movies or TV shows, not like we're having now, right? Like the Disney the Disney era of Star Wars is so different than the way it used to be. We used to have to wait decades between movies. And we didn't know there was going to be an episode 1, 2, and 3 until they announced it. Or there was going to be an episode 7, 8, and 9. So the EU, the expanded universe, became this outlet for a lot of people. So I think that is really cool that the comics were so important. There's a lot of people that consider this, their favorite Star Wars stories. Not just the comics, of course, but where they originated from in the novels. I know my brother and my buddy Dan are huge fans of the novels and the comics. I was more of a bigger fan of the video games. I really hadn't read a lot of the comics. Heir to the Empire, but my Star Wars comics really were the Dark Empire trilogy. That's all I had read up until Marvel started getting the rights back, and I started getting them in Epic Collection and got around to reading some, but I did not get around to this one. So Mara Jade is kind of like the right hand of the Emperor. She finds out that the Emperor's dead, so what does that mean for her? She starts losing some of these Sith powers that she had gained because of his training, and on top of that, she feels betrayed because she's not the only right hand of the Emperor. There apparently have been other right hands of the Emperor. And I found that to be so heartbreaking for the character. Now, the character does play a huge important part, especially in the New Republic era. And this isn't the last you're going to see of her, but this is, I think, the first you do see of her in this miniseries. And then we get some Star Wars tales that feature her, Mara Jade. That is an awesome Darth Vader cover right there. And Star Wars Tales were just anthology series. I believe the artwork in here looks like Igor Cordy, if I'm not mistaken, who did the Cable series and then Extreme X-Men. Igor Cordy, yep. There's the movie covers. This I found really fun. I love this story. This is Do or Do Not. And it's just pretty much Luke Skywalker yelling at himself. I love the art in here. I think this is Timothy. Is it Timothy? Yeah, Timothy the Second is the artist. And Leia's like, who are you talking to? And it's just, he's been yelling at Yoda. He's been talking to Master Yoda. So that's what the Star Wars tales usually entail. They're really just stories about the different characters from the Star Wars universe. Some of them, I guess a lot of people don't consider these important because they're not carrying an overall arc. But to me, I thought they were great. I thought some of the better stories are told through the Star Wars tales. Some of them are sweet. This is the Lando story. And then we get to the Star Wars Shadows of the Empire Evolution. This one is written by Steve Perry and penciled by Ron Randall. I love Ron Randall's artwork. I love the way that he draws his ladies. He did Trekker and had drawn for Marvel Comics in the past. But this is all the story of Guri and how she doesn't want to be an assassin anymore. I thought that was a really interesting take on this. She's a human replica droid, and she does not want to be an assassin. She's part of the remnants of the Black Sun, and now she wants out of this life. Artwork is stunning through here. Very, very beautiful. And she makes for a really interesting character. There are going to be some characters that appear from the book, Shadows of the Empire, through here. I remember some of my commenters told me that. But for the main part, this is tying in characters from Shadows of the Empire to what's happening during this particular time of the New Republic, when, of course, the rebellion is rebuilding everything from scratch. The Jabba tape is all the way back here. And this is a tale of swoop bikers trying to pretty much pillage whatever they can out of Jabba's palace after his death. However, they have to end up battling a bunch of members of the Hutt clan to make out with their bounty. So it's not as easy as going in and getting things out. Apocalypse Endor has an amazing cover. Of course, a take on Apocalypse Now. So I'm glad that this book came back to print, because I always forget that, not everybody gets omnis. People love trade paperbacks. So I'm very happy for you all that have been wanting this. Then we have the Twin Engines of Destruction. This makes for a real fun story, because this is the story of somebody pretty much just wearing Boba Fett's outfit. And the real Boba Fett could still be alive out there somewhere, maybe. All the way in the back, you do have some covers to trade paperbacks, mainly released at Dark Horse, and a couple of other extras right here. And next in the Epic Collection, Star Wars Legends Volume 6. But that is Star Wars Epic Collections, The New Republic Volume 1. 488 pages, $44.99 for the new printing. And before we move on to the Captain America books, I did want to show what the spines of the books look like together for this week. And also a small reminder to smash that like button, please, before we continue. But yeah, these are all of the spines of the books coming out this week from Marvel Comics. Alright, let's go ahead and continue with Captain America, the Epic Collection. And here we have Captain America Epic Collection, Volume 6. The Man Who Sold the United States. Now, we are looking at the tail end of the Steve Englehart run. Frank Robbins doing some of the artwork in here. But also, this is big. The beginning of the Jack Kirby era. The return of Jack the King Kirby. So you have Steve Englehart, of course, Jack Kirby, writing the stories with John Warner, Tony Isabella, Bill Mantlo, and Marv Wolfman. Frank Robbins and Jack Kirby. Sal Buscema and Herb Trimpe. And then, of course, your inkers over here like Vince Coletta, your letterers like Tom Orzechowski, and then your colorists like Michelle Wolfman and Janice Cohen, and editors at the time. So this collects Captain America 180 to 200, and the Marvel Treasury special Captain America's Bicentennial Battles. This book has 512 pages and retails for $49.99. And I have to say, this is so weird that Marvel just brought back the Captain America by Jack Kirby omnibus, but now it's been rebranded the Captain America by Jack Kirby Volume 4, Omnibus Volume 4. That's where you're going to find the return of Jack Kirby's issues, including the Mad Bomb story, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a second. But first, let's talk about Steve Englehart. And the reason I said weird is because at one time people were like, oh, Marvel's never going to reprint the Epic, or I'm sorry, they're never going to reprint the Omnibus because they're focusing on the Epics now. And I've always said on the channel that they really don't pay attention that both formats are available at the same time. They understand that they're catering to two different audiences, people that like the Omnibus format and people that like the Epic collections. So we do see Steve Rogers don the Nomad outfit. And we have somebody, though, that is playing the character of Captain America. And unfortunately, it doesn't have a good and happy ending for this character. And you can find out what happens through here, but it is the return of one of the villains in Captain America's past. This is when Frank Robbins starts drawing these issues, right here. And Frank Robbins was the artist that probably a lot of people are familiar with because of the Invaders run that he did. He had a huge run of Invaders, but still Steve Englehart writing these stories, kind of like I said, wrapping up his run, because he knew eventually that Jack the King Kirby was going to come back. So something ends up happening to the Captain America that is currently wearing the outfit. So it makes Steve Rogers, by the end of this, put the outfit back on, taking over the role of Captain America once again. So Captain America's back. Steve Rogers, the original Captain America, is back. And this particular issue right here is drawn by Herb Trimpe. And then we have Sal Buscema doing some of the artwork. And then you have Frank Robbins again. Frank Robbins just makes the Red Skull look freaking nuts. Like, he gets so deformed through here because, I mean, earlier on he starts off looking like a normal looking skull, nothing too crazy. At least he has like a round head, but then like he starts looking like an ogre. And I know that there are people that can't stand Frank Robbins art, but I actually dig it. I think it's interesting. You know, he was experimenting on some other levels, and I can understand the people that don't dig it, right? Like, there's some choices that are made as far as like the bodies and like what they look like when they're jumping in action poses. But to me, I don't know, it's comic books, and a lot of that you would find in animation, especially during that time. So I found out through the letter pages of the Invaders Omnibus that people were not digging his style. Not everybody, of course. This is issue 188, and this is drawn by our pal Sal Buscema, doing the breakdowns. Then Vince Colletta coming in here and finishing it out. And kind of wrapping up the storyline of Captain America coming back to the role, or Steve Rogers coming back to the role of Captain America. You have the return of Nightshade through here. Was introduced earlier on in Steve Englehart's run. And you have the Trial Falcon with the Stilt Man right there. Frank Robbins making a return through here, bringing back a lot of these classic characters. And then eventually what ends up happening is Steve Englehart leaves the book, and you have a couple of fill-in writers, like you have Marv Wolfman writing a story in here with, again, Frank Robbins. And then you have the return of the King. They even make a big deal about it in the previous issue, that the King was coming back, and that is the return of Jack Kirby to Marvel Comics, and back to the character that he co-created, Captain America. Still keeping Sam Wilson on there as his teammate, or his partner in crime, rather, and introduces us to the concept of the Mad Bomb, how there's 3 different bombs. You have the Peanut, the Dumpling, and then the Big Daddy. And it's making people angry, like manipulating their emotions, and everybody's fighting each other. And Captain America and Sam Wilson even get in a little bit of a scuffle, and then eventually have to figure out how to destroy it, who's behind this. And I've talked about this. If you want to go and watch my overview of the Captain America Omnibus Volume 4, my first overview, the Captain America by Jack Kirby Omnibus, I will leave the link up above, but because I've talked about these stories in the past. Lots of spread pages through here, too, and this is the way it looks in the Epic Collection. Of course, you're going to have minimal gutter loss because this is glued binding. It's not sewn binding. It's not like the Omnibus. But, I mean, honestly, we've seen some Omnis that have had some bad binding, and doesn't matter if it's glued or sewn. There's just bad gutter loss happening. This is the Bicentennial Celebration right here, or the Treasury Edition. That's how he came back. It's funny, there's the character of Mr. Buddha, who comes back later on in the next book I'm going to be talking about. But this is Captain America traveling through different times in America. And then let's look at the ads really quick, because I'm used to the ads in the Omnibus, which just focus on Jack Kirby. So there's a lot of ads, or extras rather, not ads. It's all the stuff in the Bicentennial. And the calendar for 1975, the bullpen from 1975. That's awesome. I love that he still has a stogie in his hand. Jeez, he was doing some amazing. This is the 2001. That made it in the top 60 of the most wanted Marvel Omnis. Interviews. At last it can be told the origin of Jack Kirby. More Jack Kirby. Doesn't look like really any Frank Robbins original art. It looks like they're just using more of the Jack Kirby stuff. Yeah. 512 pages, $49.99, and that's Captain America Epic Collection, The Man Who Sold the United States. Last but certainly not least is Marvel Masterworks Captain America Volume 16. Continuing the J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck era. You have David Anthony Kraft actually doing one of the fill-in issues here. And this book collects Captain America 270 to 280. And annual number 6, as well as material from Marvel Fanfare number 5. 328 pages, and it retails for $75. J.M. DeMatteis writing these particular issues, and David Anthony Kraft coming in to do these fill-in issues. Mike Zeck being the main artist in here, but Alan Cooperberg and Ron Wilson helping out. You have John Beatty doing the inks, Ricardo Villamonte doing inks, and then your letters down here like Jim Novak and Rick Parker. Colors Bob Sharon and Christy Sheely. And your editors at the time, Jim Salicrup. Your introduction by J.M. DeMatteis, I have to say, is one of the most unique introductions I've seen for a Marvel Masterworks, and that is, he is talking about each and every one of the people that helped put this together. So it's Mike Zeck and John Beatty, the inker, Mark Grunwald, who was editor at the time, that pulled him in to do a couple of things when he was still assisting Denny O'Neil. But this is where he gets really interesting. He thinks Arnie Roth, Bernie Rosenthal, Baron Zemo. These are characters that, well, he created Arnie Roth. Bernie is a continuation from the previous story arc, and then Baron Zemo. These are fictional characters, but he talks about how important they are. I have never heard J.M. DeMatteis talk about Arnie Roth, but because of the Comics Code and the time that these books were printed, he was a gay man, and it's interesting because I love the way that J.M. DeMatteis writes about it. Like, it wasn't that he created this character to fill some kind of quota or anything. It was just, he felt like if Captain America was representing America, then he was going to create a character that was Jewish and gay. Bernie's also Jewish. And I find that really interesting. It's like how he writes the character and how he's had people thank him because they knew, especially when you talk about the storyline here between Arnie and Michael, his roommate, because that's all that they were allowed to use back then. But you could tell that there was a lot more going on, especially the way he reacts to things happening to Michael. Then you have Stern, Byrne, and Shooter. I did not know this story, but he talks about the dumbest thing he's ever done in his comics career that made Roger Stern mad, and you can find out about it reading this amazing introduction. And the odds and ends are talking about like the annual and David Anthony Kraft. So we kick it off with issue 270, and in 270 is the first appearance of this character that I was talking about. This is Arnie. This is the character that he created, and he's a childhood friend of Steve Rogers. So, Bernie and Steve Rogers are still together. She doesn't know he's Captain America, but Arnie does, because Arnie has been friends with him since they were kids, and now they're reunited. Arnie's a lot older, a little heavier. They both served during the war, but they were both childhood friends, and their fathers were friends. So he's always known that he's Captain America, even when he saw him on TV. And he tells him about how he needs his help. He doesn't need Steve Rogers' help, but he needs the help of Captain America. We see a little bit of what happens to the young watchers, these kids and young people that are fighting crime on the streets. And that plays a big storyline here that focuses mainly on Sam Wilson. But Captain America's, of course, you got it. Bernie has her own adventure here with the deranged lady. But Captain America takes Arnie to go and try to find Michael, as he finds out his roommate, as he calls him, owes people money from gambling addictions. And when he goes and tries to pay the debt, but really it's to bring Captain America along with him to go and kick some ass and help his friend, something happens where he figures out that Michael is now this big creature, or maybe he's able to control this creature through brainwaves. Something's going on, and Captain America doesn't exactly know how this happened, but he is able to free Michael from being part of this creature. He knocks out a bunch of goons, and Michael and Arnie are reunited. Bernie, like I said, had her own adventure, and Steve Rogers, comes and holds her at the end. I thought this was, honestly, you haven't seen my seal of approval, and that's because I was saving it for this. This book was so good. This collaboration between J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck was just perfection. Even though I'm looking at the David Anthony Kraft, there's nothing wrong with the story with artwork here by Alan Cooperberg. But when you get to the Mike Zeck stuff, look at the amount of detail, and of course a lot of that, his inker John Beatty. This is the first appearance of a character that will play an important part for another J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck collaboration, and that is Vermin, who of course will show up later on in the pages of Spider-Man: Kraven's Last Hunt. So he enjoyed working with him. As a matter of fact, he said it was his favorite penciler. Like, there's nobody better. There are people just as good as Mike Zeck, but there's no one better. I like that. There is something that he does through here that brings back a character that was introduced about 100 or so issues before this, called the Phoenix, that we never really got deep into, and he kind of disappeared because, well, he was killed off screen. But not before we get this amazing story of Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. fighting against Baron Strucker, all these Barons, and Hydra. And it's a very touching story. This is the annual right here that has a story with him and the Invaders, but it also focuses on the idea of all the people that have been Captain America too, and brings back, like I said, the character of Mr. Buddha. All the people that have worn the Captain America outfit. It's an amazing cover right here. And featuring Vermin, and he finally realizes that something else is at play here. You know, somebody's kidnapped Michael, somebody's kidnapped Arnie, and Vermin, and then you have all these other villains that are just showing up. And what exactly is going on? Meanwhile, we do have these backup stories with Sam Wilson, where he's running for Congress. Yeah, this right here. So we have the return of Baron Zemo, or is it the New Phoenix? His own buddy, Arnold Roth, gets kidnapped and put into one of these mindless creatures. Poor Arnie, how's he going to get him out of there? This, I think, was a little bit of a retcon to a previous story where it was revealed that Sam Wilson wasn't as good as Sam Wilson claimed to have been. That it had something to do with the Red Skull and the Cosmic Cube. And again, Baron Zemo building his own army here of Arnim Zola, the mutates. And this is the story why he made Roger Stern upset. And, I mean, I can see that, but I think it's okay. I thought the stories in here were beautiful, really touching. There's a lot of human elements. Sam's story is really deep. And, you know, he's fighting a lot of demons. I mean, he is physically fighting a priest here. And I just talked about Daredevil and, yeah, the new status quo. But that's really interesting, that he is fighting a priest here, not wanting to listen. And I love the relationship between Steve Rogers and Arnie. And they reimagined the Scarecrow for a whole new era with their last issue here in 280. And Mike Zeck just knocking it out of the park. Yeah, I mean, this was tough to pick the pick of the week. And this is the story from the Marvel Fanfare issue number 5 right here by, I believe this is by Roger McKenzie and Luke McDonnell. It was tough to pick a pick of the week, but this one brought back a lot of memories, and I had read the stuff in epic format, but it's nice to have it in the Marvel Masterworks format. Let's look at the extras here in the back. So you have some original cover art and original pages there. This is the pencil. Oh, man, that looks like a completely finished pencil from Alan Cooperberg. What a professional. I think, oh my goodness, I think he passed away in 2015. I'm sure it's back here because John Rhett Thomas does all these amazing biographies for all the Marvel Masterworks. I know we lost David Anthony Kraft in 2021, but there's Alan Cooperberg, and yeah, Cooperberg passed away in 2015. Ron Wilson doing some of the art in here, who went on to do, of course, The Thing and Luke Cage. But that's it. 328 pages, $75. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these collected editions, don't forget to check out our sponsor, CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you are picking up, which ones you're hoping will come out in some omnibus format that, of course, already hasn't. Like a couple of these already have. And what other epic reprints you would love to see. Did you vote on our annual Most Wanted Marvel Epic Collection reprint poll? That's it, everyone. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.